All right. My name is James Shepard with CC Sales Pro, and we are going to go ahead and get started today. Now, I had the idea for this webinar last night as I was talking to my wife, and I already had another webinar, all ready to go. And my wife and we had a date last night. We went out to Chili's and we bought some stuff because we're going to Disney World next week. And so we got some clothes and things like that. And anyway, we were talking about, as we were driving back, how much different our finances are today than they were when we got started in this business. Really we were talking about just how terrible it was at the beginning and how difficult it is to explain to somebody that wants to be successful in business what it really takes. And this is something that we struggle with a lot because I have a lot of friends, people that have worked for me in other jobs when I was in the corporate world, and they might call me or my wife and say, we're really thinking about getting into business and we want to know what you think, what's it really like? And so we're torn between saying, oh, it's great, we love it now, we're having a lot of fun now. And then also though realizing what that person is going to have to go through, in order to succeed. So today I want to talk to you about how not to run out of money. Because, in talking to my wife last night, and, we were talking about it, we said, really when you boil everything down, in the merchant services business, or really any 100% commission type of business that you're in, when you really boil it all down, it really comes down to running out of money. I mean, honestly, most of these 100% commission jobs, the reality of it is, if you can be out there in the field working 8 hours a day, there is not anybody on this webinar that couldn't succeed wildly. I think everybody on this webinar would agree with me that if you could be out in the field 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, out in the field selling, okay, then you would be very successful and you would make a huge amount of money because 100% commission jobs pay really good when you make a sale. The problem is, how do you do that when you don't have enough money to put gas in your car? How do you do that when you don't have ink to print out the paperwork to make the sale? How do you do that when you're so depressed because you're 2 months behind on your utility bills? And, really that's the harsh reality of business. You get into this business or any other business and, unless you've got $100,000 sitting in the bank somewhere, it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be difficult. Whereas once you start making the money, like now, I can hire somebody to do my paperwork. I can hire somebody to do my installations. And boy, I can just get out there and just make money hand over fist like we talked about last week of, invest in your business and, investing in your business in order to grow and delegating and things like that. But first of all, you got to have some money to do that. So what I want to talk to you about today is just a really, really practical 10 steps of how to not run out of money and even a little bit further into what to do when you do run out of money and kind of how to handle that. So I hope you enjoy it today. It's really kind of off the cuff. Again, it just came from a conversation I had with my wife last night about what kind of information should I provide to agents out there that are trying to make it. And we both agreed that the thing that we would have wanted to know more than anything else when we started is the information I'm presenting with you today, and that is how do you not run out of money? Because that happened to us quite a bit. Okay, so here we go. Let's dive right in. Okay, first of all, for our core values this week. First of all, always learning. Now, relative to this topic today of not running out of money, let me give you a couple things about this. First of all, throughout the entire process of my wife and I, we'd have, all of a sudden we'd make $1,000 and then we wouldn't make any for a while. And then we make a couple thousand and, then you make 200, then you make 500, then you don't make any for a few weeks. Up and down, up and down. Throughout that whole process, I continued to spend money on books. I would go to abebooks.com where you can buy most books for like $1. I had a subscription to Audible. And throughout that time, one of the things that really got me through the tough times was learning things. I was always learning about business. I was always learning about organization. I was always learning about sales. And what that did for me was it gave me a vision of the future, and it really allowed me to kind of separate myself from the harsh reality of today and say, right now things really suck. I can't pay my bills. I'm trying to make money. I can't close this deal I'm trying to close, whatever it was. And while all that was going on, I could separate myself out from that and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to go read a book I want to read, and that really, really helped me to be able to kind of separate myself and continue to learn. So always learn, always be reading books. It'll just help you to kind of give you a respite from, the harsh realities of business sometimes, and it gives you a vision of the future of what you're going to be able to accomplish. And also it prepares you for the time when you do have the money where you're like, wow, all of a sudden, because I'm telling you, in business is so strange. In business, you'll go from where you're broke and you're not making anything, and it just almost seems like the next day you're just doing great and you're making all this money and you're going, wow, what do I do with my business now? And then you got it, okay, now we got to do some delegation. Now we got to organize this better. Now I got to bring some people on. Now I need to buy my own equipment, whatever it is, and you need to be prepared for that when it comes. So take that time when you're broke and when you really can't do very much and read a lot. Take that time to learn. Take that time to really get into learning, okay? When you do run out of money, just keep learning. Even if you do run out of money and you say, you might get up one morning and say, you know what? I'm waiting to get paid on a sale that I put in yesterday, and literally I don't have any gas in my car. I don't have any ink in my printer. I can't do anything. One of the things you can do is you can learn. Learn something new for the future of your business. Next, always living. Always value relationships over money. Always value relationships over money. Honestly, one of the reasons I came up with our always living core value is because of what it means to me relative to the topic that we're talking about today. I just refuse to live my life in such a way where when I don't have money, then suddenly, I don't care about my marriage. I don't care about, my family. I don't live my life that way. I just refuse to do that. Even if I'm having a tough time in business, I'm going to continue to value my important relationships and continue to move forward in my life. And there's a lot of other areas in your life other than just your business. So you got to look at the other areas of your life, even when things are going terrible with your business, and say, you know what, I have these other areas of my life. And that's why it's so important to be always living. What happens to a lot of people is, and you have to pardon me today, my voice is still a little messed up. But what happens to a lot of agents is that they get into this business and that's all they have. And, they won't do anything else and it's all about their business. Well, the problem with that is if your business starts to do poorly, you start to look at yourself like a failure. And, I'm not succeeding and I must be a failure. Well, that's the problem. You need to have several other areas of your life. Maybe it's a charitable organization you work with. Maybe it's your family. Maybe it's a hobby you have. Whatever it is, keep those things going. Don't just say, well, I'm done with all that because I got to get this business going. No, that's not smart, because then what's going to happen is if your business starts to go downhill, you're like a tripod with only two legs. You're gonna fall over. Okay, live life on purpose, even when it's a mess. It's very easy to live by schedule when you have an administrative assistant that makes your schedule for you, and it's very easy to make a financial plan when you're making $10,000 a month. And it's very easy to live your life on purpose when everything is going smooth, when all your relationships are going great. The hard thing is living your life on purpose realistically, even when things are just a disaster and a nightmare, being able to confront that reality and say, I'm going to make a plan and live my life on purpose, even when it's a mess. That's when it's difficult. And that's when that core value of always living really comes into play for our agents. Lastly, number 3 here with the core values, always leveraging. Learn how to negotiate your bills. Let me give you a basic financial tip here for those of you that want to succeed in business and don't have thousands of dollars in the bank right now. Let me give you a tip, okay? The best way to manage your bills during times where you don't have enough money to pay them is to communicate with the person that you owe money to. There were times when we started our business, I was talking to my wife about this, there was times during when we first started our business when our rent was a couple months behind. And, our landlord could have evicted us. But, I personally drove over and met with him every single month. And, our rent was $600 a month when we first started our business. Well, that was nice. And, I would go to him face to face. I come up and say, hey, I know we're a couple months behind. I brought you a check for $455 because that is literally all I have. We're starting a business right now. We're working hard. I'm out there working every single day, and I appreciate your patience. I wanted to apologize for being late on the rent. Here's my plan. I'm going to pay you $455 today. The rest of the rent that we're late on, I'm going to have that to you in 2 weeks. 2 weeks would come, and I make sure I got my sale that next week, and then I go and pay that money. And so talking to them, my phone, my cell phone, a lot of times it was right on the edge of getting cut off. Well, that had been a problem because all my customers trying to call me, and it's like, oh, the guy's phone's cut off. He must not be doing too well. So you gotta, I would call them. Hey, here's the deal. I'm just started a business. Here's the situation I'm in. Explain the situation, talk to people. So learn how to it's a humbling experience, especially like someone like me. I was in a corporate job making all this money and never had a problem with money before. And so it was very difficult for me to start this business because all of a sudden I didn't have tons of money. It's difficult when you have to tell your family member, hey, I'm sorry, but I can't, my wife and I can't go out to eat with you right now because we're broke. Learn how to say those kind of things. It's difficult to say that. But you got to learn how to just own it and say, you know what, we're passionate about our business. We're excited about it. My wife and I were talking about this last night. There were many times where we knew that both of our families thought we were nuts. You know what I mean? They're like, good night. You left a job making like $70,000 a year, and now you're having a hard time paying your utility bills. What are you thinking? And what I was thinking was that I didn't want to work a corporate job making $70,000 a year the rest of my life. I wanted to start a business, and I wanted to make a lot more than that. And so that's what I was thinking. And now everybody's like, oh, they're doing great, and this is good. But I'll tell you, there's a lot of times where we had to say things like, man, we're broke, or whatever it might be. Okay. So learn how to negotiate your bills. And then next, learn how to stretch, your money and your resources. Okay. You got to learn how to stretch the money. You got to learn how to stretch the resources. There were 50 different times, I'm sure. I mean, literally, by the time our business was doing well, guys, I had sold like everything that I owned that wasn't like bolted to the floor. We'd sold everything. I mean, anything we could think of to sell. We had a car and a truck. I sold the truck. I had a huge collection of books. So I went on eBay and sold 100 books probably, and I'd make $10 or $15 on every book. And then, we'd get that money and we'd put that towards our rent, or we'd put that towards our other bills, or we buy ink cartridges so I could go make another sale and make a couple $100. And so when we first got started first few months, we really had to buckle down and learn how to stretch our money and stretch our resources. You got to learn how to do that. You got to learn how to value that money, and it really will help you later on in business, because before this business, I was not very good at managing expenses. I was always just making lots of money, spending lots of money. But I'll tell you, it really gives you a wake-up call when you're like, okay, I've got $100 here. Do we pay for more heating oil so we can heat our home during the winter? Or do we pay our rent so we can stay in the home, when you have to make difficult decisions like that, you got to learn how to stretch your money and be very careful with it. And that's a good lesson to learn. Of course, at the time, it doesn't seem like a great lesson to learn, but it is. It's a good lesson to learn, okay? All right, so let's get into it. I'm going to give you 10 tips on how to not run out of money. These are things I wish I would have known. Now, let me just give you one kind of little caveat before I get into that. When I started in this business, I was with a company that sold leases and where the commission was terrible and there was no residual. So just so you guys know, when I give you kind of all these terrible, if you get into our program and actually do what we're telling you to do, it hopefully will not be quite as bad as it was for me. Now, it's still going to be tough, and I'm not one of these recruiters that gives you the flowery story of how, it's just going to be amazing and you're going to make $1 million your first year. It's going to be tough, but it's definitely not going to be as tough as what my wife and I had it if you actually follow the steps that we have in place now, because one of the reasons I started CC Sales Pro was to help agents not go through what I went through. So that's kind of my goal today, is to help you kind of avoid some of that. So let's talk about it a little bit. With a couple tips here, okay? My number 10 tip, make a realistic short-term plan. Now, if you're like me and you're like a visionary business person, sales agent, you're seeing the long-term view. You know, it's easy for you to imagine what it's going to be like to make $20,000 a month in 3 years. You know, you're thinking like that, and that's great. You need to have that plan, but what your spouse wants to see, what your family wants to see, and what you need to have is which bills am I going to pay over the next month? How much money am I going to make next week, and how are we going to buy food? What bills are going to come due on which days of the month, and when do I have to have a sale entered by in order to get the money in time to pay that bill so the lights stay on? You know, the short-term plan, if we're not careful, will be so positive and so, I'm an amazing business person. Things are going to go wonderful for me. And, eventually, honey, we're going to make thousands of dollars. Okay, that's nice. But are you going to pay the rent this month? That's what the short term is, what's going to put you out of business. Okay, your long-term plan isn't going to put you out of business. Your short-term plan is. So make sure you have a written plan that says when bills are due, which days they're due, and then make that realistic plan. Now, let me give you a couple tips of the next 4 here on how to make that realistic plan. Number 9, personal needs come first. Now, when you're starting a business, you're going to have a whole new definition for personal needs. Okay? Personal needs are food, okay? Utilities like electric and heat, and your rent so you have somewhere to live. Okay? Those are your personal needs. Those come first before anything else, all right? You got to make sure you pay those. Your personal needs come first, but your business needs come second. This is where you got to communicate with your spouse and your family and talk about this, okay? Now, your business needs are gas for your car, ink for your printer cartridge, and business cards. That's it, okay? So gas for your car, ink for your printer cartridge, and business cards. Those are the only 3 needs that you have in this business, okay? So number 1, personal needs come first, which is food and housing. Then number 8, the next thing, secondly, is your business needs, which is gas for your car, ink cartridges for your printer, and business cards. That's the order in which you spend your money. Now, here's the difficult thing about that. The difficult thing about that is when you have to explain to your family that you have to buy ink cartridges for your printer to print applications so you can make sales, and that means that the cable is going to be shut off for a few weeks. Because, see, the cable doesn't fall into the personal needs section. That's what it means to start a business. Some of you that might be thinking like, oh, I'm going to be a great business person, okay? Are you willing to explain to your family and to your spouse that this business is the future of your family, you are 100% committed to it, and because of that, you have to reorder some business cards right now because you're about to run out, and that means we're not going to have cable for a few months. That means that the teenager's cell phone is going to be shut off for a month. Those are the difficult decisions that, honestly, when you talk to business people, this is one thing that really frustrates me, I've read books by people about business, and then I've actually talked to those people on the phone, and the stories that you get are wildly different, and I've decided to just not be that person. I'm going to actually share what it really means to start a business, and those decisions, that's what it really means to start a business. It means you're so committed that you're willing to choose the business over personal wants, and that's the next one. After you've paid the business needs, though, just the basics, gas for the car, ink cartridges for the printer, and business cards, then you take care of the personal wants next. So that's where, the kids' cell phones come in. That's where the Comcast for, your cable, all those different things. That's where all of the wants come in. You and your wife going on a nice date to a restaurant, things like that. That's where all the personal wants come in third, okay? And then fourth, the business wants. So the business wants, you're not going to get very many of those for a long time. You know what I mean? Maybe all of a sudden you get a good amount of money and you're paying these things down. But again, coming into stretching your resources, your goal is you've got to have a short-term plan that's going to cover your personal needs and your business needs for a while. So even if you get like $1,000 in right now today, you gotta plan out and say, okay, wait a second, all right? before we spend any of this money, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at our personal needs and our business needs and make sure that that's covered for, the next month or so before we go spending any more of this money. That's what I mean by stretching your resources. You got to stretch your resources to cover these two areas first. Then you move on to personal wants. Then after that, once you're making more money, then you're able to get to business wants, and you're able to get that new laptop, or you're able to get that iPad that you want to do the applications on, or that new smartphone that you really like, or whatever it is. But first, you got to cover the personal wants, then you get to the business wants. Now, you can explain this and communicate this to your family, and they will understand it. I mean, they might not like it, but they will understand, and say, look, here's the list. This is what our personal needs are. And get everybody to understand what your personal needs are. This is the business needs. Okay, we only got to do 3 things, but understand we have to pay for those before we pay for anything else, because if not, then I'm going to be out of business. Because if I don't have ink to print my paperwork, if I don't have my car, gas in my car, then I can't make it happen. Now, one other business need I didn't mention would be your phone. You got to have some kind of phone service, whether it's a prepaid phone or whatever. You got to have a phone number people can call. And by the way, let me give you one other tip on that. You want to make sure that you're using a Google Voice number, because Google Voice is free and you can forward it to any number you get. Okay, that's one of the little tips and tricks I had. So that way, if my phone would have gotten shut off, I would still get the voicemail sent to my email inbox. I could go to the library and pull them up and listen to them, and then go meet that business owner. Okay, so and also if I change phones, I didn't have to worry about changing my business cards every time I had to change my phone number. Okay. Business wants come first. Business wants come fourth. Number 5, communicate with your spouse. Now, I've already kind of talked about this a little bit, but you have to communicate with your spouse about this realistic plan, and that's really important. I'm actually going to talk about that more on the next slide, so I'll leave that. Number 4, use the 25X program and buyouts. Now, this is something that I wanted to kind of point out here that I think is really important to understand about getting your business off the ground. Okay. In business, everything is on the table. Okay, when you're starting a business, everything is on the table. All right. So when if you're failing to meet the personal needs, business needs, and personal wants, and when I say personal wants, by the way, I'm not talking about like a Lamborghini. You know what I mean? I'm talking about like the cable bill and still stuff that's like what your family would consider needs, but that aren't absolutely essential. Okay. If you're having problems covering those top 3 categories, then you're going to need to, as soon as you have the residual built up, go ahead and sell a little bit of it. As long as you keep selling, then you're going to be fine. You can sell a little bit of your residual in a buyout, and I can explain how that works. But basically, the bottom line is you get about 15 months worth of residual up front. You have to sell at least 10 accounts. So if you put up 10 accounts in January, then by this last April 1st, you would have got full residual on all 10 of those accounts. And you could sell that residual for 15 times the monthly income. So for instance, if you had 10 accounts giving you $40 a month per account, then you're getting $400 a month times 15 is $6,000. $6,000 could be the difference between your business closing down and between your business continuing to go. And if that's the decision, do the buyout because you want to keep your business going, okay? Now, is that a great long-term strategy? No. But again, today I'm talking about how not to run out of money. So if you want to know how not to run out of money, you're going to have to be willing to give up a little bit of your long-term strategy in order to fund your short-term needs so you can just keep your business going. You got to be in like survival mode. Now, eventually you got to get out of survival mode, and it's difficult to do that, and that's a subject for another webinar. But today I'm talking about get in survival mode and get your business going and survive your business, okay? Number 3, make a time commitment of 3 months. When things got really, really tight for my wife and I, we sat down and talked about our short-term plan. We talked about the long-term prospects of the business, and I agreed. She was having a really hard time with it, which she would tell you. It was very difficult. I mean, very, very difficult. In many ways, it's actually more difficult on your spouse than it is on you because, you feel in control. You're building this business. You feel in control. Your spouse looks at it like, good night. My whole world is crashing around me. Our finances are just becoming a mess, and it's all because of this business, and I can't even do anything to help. I can't do anything about it. And they don't even, a lot of times, like my wife didn't really want to help. You know what I mean? It's like she didn't like the business. The business is what was causing all of her problems. So she didn't really want to help with the business, and that's fine. It's my business. I've got to make it happen. But we talked about it, and I said, look, how about this? I said, I can't make this business happen if I'm constantly wondering if we're going to be able to make it. So can we do a 3-month commitment, and we set a date and said by this date, if we can't pay our bills and cover the basic needs of the business, then I'm going to go get a job. Well, we said 3 months. That's the thing. 3 months from now. So I had a goal. I knew that I had to work my tail off to get my business going, and I had 3 months, and I worked harder than I've ever worked to make my business run and start making money. And 3 months later, by then I was already with a lot more money, and things were looking up. And so we definitely, kept the thing going. We still weren't doing great, but we were, it was definitely looking up. We were starting to get residual kicking in. It was great. And, then we were able to move forward and get past that. Okay. Number 2 tip, don't show desperation, okay? Desperation and depression, those 2 D words are the 2 words that are really going to kill your business when you're running low on cash, all right? Let me give you an example. Let's say that you make a sale and your processor is kind of dragging their feet on giving you the money. Maybe there was a glitch, there was some kind of a mistake, okay? Now, you need to pay your bills, right? But you're waiting on the processor to pay you money. Now, let me ask you a question. If you were the processor, so put yourself on the other side of this equation, all right? Which of these 2 agents would you be more likely to try to help to get them paid right away, okay? The agent that calls that says, I'm desperate, I don't have any money, I don't even know why I'm in this business in the first place, I should never have signed on with you guys suck, and I need my money now, okay? So there's one agent. The other agent calls in and says, I'm really concerned. I'm looking to build this business long term. I'm out here working full time every day, and I'm a little concerned that I haven't gotten paid on my money yet. And I want to work with you guys long term, and I want to make this a huge business. But we haven't even got paid our commission, so I'm really getting nervous about that. Which of those 2 agents is going to get paid quicker? Okay, obviously the second one is going to get paid quicker. Why? Because he shows long-term potential, all right? And you don't want to burn your bridges at the processing company just because, they made a mistake. People make mistakes, processors make mistakes, things happen, and you got to understand that from their perspective, they're not in desperation mode. Understand, I'm not in desperation mode anymore. I know what it's like to be in desperation mode, so I'm normally the most empathetic, but the processor's not. So, that can be very frustrating. When you're in business, it can be very frustrating that it's like, nobody else understands how difficult this is. Nobody else understands how hard I'm working, and they don't pay me the money, or it's not on time, and it's like, man, they don't get it. And that is probably the most frustrating thing about starting a business, is that nobody really understands except you. And so, your tendency is to become desperate, and you just can't do that. It just is not a good thing to do. It also goes for your sales. The worst thing you can do is show desperation when you're trying to close a deal, because that makes people think, man, this person doesn't have it all together. I don't want to deal with them. They look like they're kind of, shifty. They're probably not going to be in the business very long. Why? Because you're showing that desperation. It's not their fault that you decided to start a business and don't have any money, right? It's not. And it's really not your fault either, but it's your decision. You decided to get into this business, and things are going to be tight, or you should if you've listened to any of my videos. So it's going to be tight, so be prepared for that, and don't show any desperation when you're out in the field. The number 1 tip, keep selling. And I got a few points on this that I want to cover. Now, I could have actually called this keep selling, or even keep prospecting. Let me answer a couple questions first, and then we're going to move on to this slide here about keep selling. Okay. All right. Brian says, I learned back that when I couldn't afford ink to print an app, I could go print it at the library for $0.10 a page. I could always scrounge up $1 and change to get that done. See, you know what, Brian? I love that, man. Thanks for sharing that, because you know what? That's the kind of tips that you guys that are new agents, that's honestly what you need to hear. And it is. I can give you all these tips about how to close deals, but you know what really keeps people from making sales? They run out of ink for their printer, and they need to know where they can print their stuff. So there you go. Thank you very much, Brian. That's a realistic tip on what to do when you're running out of money. Scrounge up $1 and change and go down to the library and print your application off. I love it. Thank you, Brian, very much for that. I really appreciate the honesty. Again, it's funny because I talk to most of these top agents, now, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm doing great. I've always been a business success. Yeah, right. Tell me about your first month. And anyway, all right, here we go. So, my number one tip is keep selling or keep prospecting. Okay, because this is the thing. Almost any problem that you face in business, you can sell your way out of it. I actually heard that quote in a book, and it's funny. I was actually at the library, back to Brian's point, to print an application, if I remember correctly, and I was in the business section, and I pulled this book out, and it was on working from home, building a home-based business, I think it was called, and I was reading it, and it said almost you can sell your way out of almost any problem in business, and I'm telling you, that is true. I mean, that is so true, okay? You got a problem in business, sell your way out of it. I mean, seriously, just about any problem you come across, whether in your finances or whatever, if you're in business, you just need to sell. Just go sell. Just keep selling. You get up, oh my goodness, my car is going to be repossessed in a month. Go sell. You can make sales and then you can make money and then you can negotiate with the person to keep your car, okay? Whatever it is, you can negotiate, but you've got to have some money. So go sell. All right, that's my number one tip. The best way to not run out of money is to keep selling. When things are at their worst or when things are at their best, keep selling. A big mistake a lot of agents make. They'll get their first deal and they might make $400 or $500. And then they're like, oh my goodness, I'm so relieved that I got a little bit of money in the bank. I need to take a day off. I just got to, no, don't take a day off. Don't take a day off yet. When you make $300 or $400, you're motivated. You're excited. Your wife is not upset with you, right? Because you just made some money. Everybody's like happy for like a couple hours. Go sell. That's when you're going to be at your best, and that's when you're going to be able to get into a role and, okay, I can make another sale and then another sale, and you can get on that roll to where you don't run out of money. Then you're really going to be, able to make a lot. So keep selling, okay? When things are going great, keep selling. When things are going terrible, keep selling. That's my number one tip. If you don't want to run out of money, keep selling, okay? Next, stay close to home so you can save gas money. I sold literally within walking distance of my house for like the first 3 weeks. And let me tell you why I did that. I did that so that I could walk to the prospects. All right. Now, I had to do that on 2 days. 2 days I literally did not have gas money. And so I had to walk to my follow-up appointments and to get my prospects. But you know what's amazing about that? I still made sales, and I was still able to get like 5 or 10 new prospects every day that I was out. And it was actually really nice. I just walked, got some good exercise. I probably walked, 3 or 4 miles that day. And I just walked, and I happen to have a lot of businesses around my house. So, don't be afraid to walk to places, but stay close to home. It's going to save you a lot of gas money. Resist the urge to go 45 minutes or an hour away because, that's going to eat up a lot of gas money. And what'll happen is it'll shut you down because you run out of money, or your wife says, hey, we don't have enough money for you to have all this gas money. It's killing us. Well, what are you going to do? That's where all your follow-up appointments are. It'll just drain your pipeline, and that'll really mess you up. Don't be afraid to walk around. I just talked about that. Save gas money. I mean, like I say, it actually is not a bad thing to just walk, especially now that it's warming up across the country. If you do run out of money, keep prospecting. You got to keep prospecting. You got to keep those leads coming in. You know what I mean? And I'm telling you, that's what's going to save your business is to keep prospecting. When you do get some money, print several applications, fill the car up with gas. Okay, you know what I'm saying? Like, do the thing. Don't just like, oh, we got some money. Okay, I'm gonna print one application, and then I'm gonna put like an eighth of a tank of gas in the car, and then I'm gonna do all this other stuff because I really need, because this is what happens, guys. I'm just being honest with you. One of the things that kills more businesses than anything else is a total, complete lack of realistic communication with your family. It kills more businesses, I think, than anything else. I really think the reality of business is very different than what is portrayed in the media and what's portrayed in most business books. The reality of starting a business is that most business people are kind of proud. We're kind of like, we're invincible. And so we have a real hard time going to our spouse and saying, look, honey, I'm sorry. I know this is so frustrating, and I personally apologize. It's my fault. but we're broke and I just got a little bit of money. I've got to fill the car up with gas so I have enough money to do my appointments. I've got to buy some ink cartridges because I know I'm almost out, and I could print maybe one more application, but I'm going to run out and then I can't make any more sales next week. So my commitment to you, honey, is that I'm putting this money into the business. We've already paid for it. We have food, we have a place to live, and we have our utilities on, so everything's okay at home right now. I know we're way behind on some other bills, but what we're going to do is I'm going to put this little bit of money into the business, and then I'm going to get out there, and next week I'm working 60 hours next week. And next week I'm going to be out selling 8 hours a day out in the field, and I'm going to make a couple sales and bring in some money for us, okay? That's the kind of communication that you have to have with your family. And even, you have teenage kids. That same thing. I mean, they need that communication. They can see through a fake. They know what's going on. So they need to see something from you. They need to see some sincerity and even some apology. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't know. I couldn't even tell you how many times I told my wife I'm sorry during starting the business. Honey, I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. We're broke and it's my fault. And I don't know what else to tell you, but we're going to have to make another plan because that vacation we had planned, we're not going to be able to do that. That trip we were going to do, we're not going to be able to do that, And fortunately for me, I married somebody that's very understanding, but it was still very difficult for her. And so when you do get some money, stretch those resources out to cover the personal needs and then the business needs. When all else fails, sit at home with your spouse. Okay, so here's my last tip of the day. I realize this is kind of, whatever, but I just want to give this to you because I actually think this is really important. When all else fails, sit at home with your spouse. Let's talk a little bit about how your family views your business, and then I'll answer some other questions and stuff, okay? Number one, recognize that they don't understand your drive, okay? And they don't have to, okay? Nobody else has to understand you. One of the things that is like a trap you'll get into is that it's like, your business is failing, right? You're making no money, you're broke, your bills are behind, and then your wife is upset with you or your husband's upset with you and you're like, you just don't understand me. Well, duh. What do you expect? You're broke, your bills are behind. You don't think they're going to be upset? They're going to be upset. Okay, so just plan on that. Okay, my wife is extremely understanding, but I can assure you that when I was 2 or 3, I think we were about a little over 2 months behind on our rent at one point, I can assure you that my wife was upset. Okay, with me, all right, and she's very understanding, but she was upset with me then, and she just didn't understand me. Come on, seriously, give me a break. Of course they don't understand your drive. It's not their dream, it's your dream, and they don't have to share your dream at the beginning when it's a nightmare. Okay, you don't want them to share your dream. You just want to take your dream and just make your dream happen on the side because it's a nightmare for them. So understand that they don't understand your drive. Recognize that they have the right to ask you to get a job. Now, again, before you get into the business, that's where that 3-month commitment comes in. You need to talk to them and say, look, this is going to take me a while to succeed. It's going to be tough. So let's make a time. And let's say 3 months from now, you have the right to tell me to quit and go get a job. You know what I mean? And really, at any time, I told my wife that, many times, and I meant it. My wife had the right at any time to say, you know what? This is messing up our marriage. Now, for me and my wife, strangely enough, it really did bring us closer together. But, but there was definitely some times of tension in there. And if we had gotten to a point where my wife said, you know what, James, this is doing permanent damage to our relationship and I can't do it anymore, then I would have said, done. I quit. I'm done. I'm going to get a job. I'm getting a job tomorrow. Okay. And actually, there was a time towards the beginning where we weren't able to meet some of our personal and business needs. Where I actually got a job in the evening, and I was working 4 days a week in the evening at a call center, helping out with some this call center in our area. And I worked there, for 4 nights a week. And, we didn't make much. I think we made maybe $300 a week or $275, $300 a week. But that was enough to cover some of our personal needs and business needs that we had. My wife got a job for a while. And she's incredible. If she was ever in business, she'd make a lot more than me. But she was doing really good. She got promoted like 3 times. I'm like, what's going on? But anyway, she was working. She worked for about a year and a half to bring in some extra income for us as well. And so, we were both committed to doing that. But recognize that they have the right to ask you to get a job, okay? Recognize that they want your time and they want to feel more important than your business. And then let me read the last one too. Recognize that no one understands what it's really like to start a business unless they've done it. So first of all, you got to understand that your wife or your husband they look at this business almost like the enemy sometimes. Okay, in other words, this business is messing up our finances. This business is messing up our relationship, whatever it might be. So understand that they want your time. So don't feel, but this is what happens. This is what we do. And let me kind of can I give you a little psychology here for just a second? And again, I'm not a psychologist by any stretch, but let me just give you some common sense psychology, okay? Your family, like, let's understand this, okay? So you're broke, right? Your family blames your business. Your solution is, I'm going to spend all my time on my business because I'm going to make this thing work so that I can fix this. No, that's not really the problem. I mean, yeah, that is kind of the problem, and you got to keep selling. But if you pull away from those relationships, now all you're doing is throwing fuel on the fire, and they're like, see, I knew the business was more important than I am. Still continue to spend time with them, because even if you can't provide resources, provide time. And that's why I said when all else fails, sit at home with your spouse. There was quite a few days where I didn't have any gas, I didn't have any money, and I said, okay, honey, I'm just going to be with you all day today. What do you want to do? We don't have any money, but can we just, I don't know, let's watch a movie together, let's sit at home this morning, and I'll go prospecting this afternoon, whatever it is. Sometimes you've got to take that time for your family, and understand that they look at the business differently than you do. It's kind of like the enemy to them, like it's so all right. And then lastly, recognize that no one else really understands what it's like to start a business. My wife and I were talking about this last night, that we'll talk to people that are like, oh boy, you guys are just so lucky, oh my, we talked to this family the other day that was like, you guys are always going out to eat. We always see your picture on Facebook. You're always going out to eat. It's like, you guys are just so fortunate, And we're like, yes, we're so fortunate. Thank you. God's really blessed us. And he has, and that's true. But at the same time, I couldn't even explain to that person, like, that person would never do what we did to get to where we're at. Never. They would have quit 3-4 months before they would have turned the corner like we did. So, no one understands what it's like to start a business. So just understand that. Understand that nobody in your family understands. Don't expect them to understand. What you got to look at is understand that, there's going to be some things that are going to fall away a little bit while you're getting your business going, because you're kind of in survival mode, and you're certainly valuing your relationships, but there's certain things you can't do. I mean, we went for an entire year where we didn't buy anybody birthday presents. Nobody. Not my nephews, not my nieces, not my, our siblings, our parents, nobody. We didn't buy anybody birthday presents. You know why? Because we didn't have money to buy birthday presents. And we would just call people and say, boy, hey, we just want to wish you a happy birthday. Sorry we didn't get to send you anything. We're just really broke right now, and I apologize, but we just wanted to say you're really important to us, and we appreciate you and everything. And that's all we could do. Now, there was a lot of times where our family members kind of thought, things like that would happen, and they would be like, good night, go get a job, And, but my wife and I, it was our business. We didn't expect them to understand. It was tough. We didn't go crying to our family, oh my goodness, we're so broke. Can we get this? Oh my goodness, we don't have any money for this. We don't have any money for that. We didn't go crying to anybody else. It was our business. We were starting our business. It was not doing well. We were broke, but we were going to get through it together as a couple, and it was our deal. You know what I mean? We're not going to show desperation to anybody, including our family. All right? So anyway, so that's some practical tips. I really hope that this has kind of been a help to you. Let me see if I can answer a few questions over here. And then I have one more thing, by the way. Don't leave yet, because I have one more really important thing I want to talk about. But let me just answer a couple questions if I could. Rosalind says you can also print for free at most community centers. You just have to take in your own paper. That's another good point. Troy says, my biggest enemy is myself and my lack of organization. Where can I find help in that area? There's only 24 hours in one day. Personally, I need 30. Yeah, I agree, Troy. Okay, let me give you a couple tips on that, Troy. Number one, there's a book you need to read or listen to. It's called Personal Efficiency Program, or PEP. PEP, Personal Efficiency Program. It's a really good book. Help on organization, though. Let me give you a couple things. With organization, you just got to have boundaries. Organization in this business is just all about boundaries. Just put some boundaries in place. When are you going to be out in the field selling? And just, put some boundaries in there. And you have to have group accountability. Talk to everybody in your family. Hey, everybody, it may be what you do. Like for me, it's what I did. Sunday afternoons, I would talk to my wife. Okay, honey, let's look at next week. Now, next week, There's 5 days next week. I need to prospect, new prospecting for 20 hours, and I need to have 10 hours for follow-up appointments, and I need to have 10 hours for paperwork. So let's look at our schedules and figure out when I'm going to do that. And then what you do is you put in those blocks together, and we would put those in, and she would put it in her calendar, and she would know that I'm supposed to be out selling. Now, guys and gals, let me give you a tip here, okay? If you want to be really effective and you have a spouse or significant other involved here, get them involved with keeping you accountable by being honest with them and say, look, honey, I just want to make sure we're really clear because next week I need to work these 40 hours. We agree on those hours, and I say, could you do me a huge favor? Every day, look at those hours and make sure I'm working then, because if I'm not, we're going to be really broke and not be able to pay the bills in a couple weeks. You know, be honest. And a lot of times, like my wife, she'll help me out with that. You know what I mean? It's like, honey, it's 9:30 and, you know, our electricity is going to be shut off in 2 weeks. Go sell, right? So, you know, your spouse can help you with that. So anyway, depending on your spouse and everything, that will help you. This person here, I can't see the name, but I got a third shift job. Yeah, I'm telling you, you know, and I'm telling you, that's what it takes. That is what business is all about. It is. You know, business is all about that person that says, yeah, I want my business to succeed so bad I got a third shift job and I'm getting up and selling from, you know, 9 to 5. That's the person that's going to succeed because they're committed to their business and they're going to make it happen no matter what. And that's what you got to be willing to do. You got to be willing to do something like that. Now I can drive as much as I want because I paid off a lot of my debts, and my goal is to have the option of quitting that job and doing this full-time during the day. Yeah, and that's a great goal to have, and paying off your debts is also huge accomplishment, so big props to you on that. That's awesome. Much everybody. Have a great day.